Hello everyone, this is your host, your friend, your boy, Jet Black, the one and only, here with another exciting video. In this video, I'm going to be reacting to an article on the internet. This article is called Wizard Battles and Demon Traps Revealed in Ancient Christian Text. Essentially, this article is about Apocrypha. So Apocrypha happens to be texts that are considered non-canon to the Bible, because there's like Orthodox Christianity. So essentially, Orthodox Christianity determines what is canon and what isn't canon in Christian mythology. And that's why you have all these different Bibles that have different like translations and interpretations of the text that belong to like different churches, but also why there are certain books that just aren't in the Bible normally, depending on where you're from. In certain places, stuff like the Book of Enoch isn't really apocrypha; it's like a part of just what they normally look at. The Book of Enoch being an example of apocrypha, commonly non-canon text, or non-canon in reference to the Orthodox. Without further ado, let's jump into this article and see what they have to say about wizard battles and demon traps, both of which sound pretty interesting and also sound pretty anime. Right off the bat, I like this art that they have here. I don't know where they got it from. I'm used to looking at articles online and under pieces of art they might say like the source, but I like it. Looks cool. A wizard battle and over 300 other bizarre stories, including trap demons, have been published by biblical scholars, translating apocryphal ancient Christian texts into English for the first time. The facts about Jesus' life are shadowy to say the least, but by the end of the 4th century, the Church had selected and canonized the biblical text for inclusion in the Bible. However, newly translated apocryphal texts, meaning ancient Christian texts that never made their final edit for inclusion in the Bible, have been found to include supernatural stories of a wizard battle and trapping demons. So already, I feel like it started really well, especially by repeatedly pushing in your face, wizard battles and demons, wizard battles and demons. They're like, don't you want to hear about these Christian wizard battles and demons? So yeah, it definitely is like pushing you to want to keep reading to see if they go into more detail about these stories. I feel like a weak article would push that a lot and then not describe the stories. Let's see if this is a weak article. Tony Burke is a professor of early Christianity at York University in Toronto, Canada, and his new book, New Testament Apocrypha, More Non-Canonical Scriptures, Volume 2, he explains why 2 copies of this apocryphal text are held in the Vatican Apostolic Library and in the Leipzig University Library. He also believes that these stories were important to Christians long after the Bible appeared. In one of these untranslated Coptic texts, a battle is described as having been fought by diabolical wizards attempting to destroy an ancient church of the Virgin Mary in Greece. According to Tony Burke, more than 300 Christian apocryphal texts are known to exist. So again, they're hinting at the story. They haven't really told us too much about it, but now we have a very brief synopsis of it. So there's a battle being fought by diabolical wizards who are trying to destroy an ancient church of the Virgin Mary. Let's see if they go into more detail so we can really jump into the story. Oh, also for this image, they do have a little caption and they have a site where they tell you that they got it as an Adobe stock photo. Why don't they have that for the top image? The top image looks really cool. I specifically want to know where that one's from. This one just looks like a piece of art that exists somewhere. Like someone just took a picture of a thing. This other one looks like something that someone drew and then edited on their computer or whatever. It looks pretty dope. Anyways, let's look at the caption for this image. Angels and demons from the facade of St. Peter Church, Spoleto, Italy, both featured in stories found in recently translated ancient Christian text, apocryphal text. Interesting. Angels and demons both featured in the text. Are they saying that this artwork is in reference to the text? Or are they just saying angels and demons are present in these texts and they're also present in this artwork? I'm curious how connected this artwork is to the text because the phrasing is kind of odd, the way they say it. According to Live Science, Tony Burke stated that much of the Egyptian population around the Mediterranean had converted to Christianity, but that many still followed polytheistic faiths. In the same article, he goes on to state that there was a tendency to identify the remnants of polytheism with magoi, or wizards, who pose dangers to the Christian community. Interesting. So they're now like kind of defining what wizards were considered to be, and they're essentially describing them as being people who still kind of carried polytheistic faith with them. Like people who may not have fully converted to Christianity or maybe not converted at all were considered to be like wizards. Okay? I mean, that sounds weird, I suppose, because I imagine you could just be someone who believes in multiple gods, but you don't cast like magic spells or whatever. I have like a very like set definition of wizard in my head involving someone who like studies magic and looks at different magical artifacts and practice casting spells and writing scrolls and filling out books of shadow and stuff like that. So it's interesting to be like, oh, you're not monotheistic? Wizard. Wizard. Very interesting title to give. But let's jump in because it seems like this next section is going to actually be telling us the text. Like we're going to be jumping into this Apocrypha and seeing this wizard battle take place. I mean, based on that definition, it almost just sounds like people who believe in multiple gods fighting, because nothing is really inherently wizard based, or I guess magical battle based, by just believing in multiple gods. But we'll see. The wizard battle and how the Virgin Mary helped. Is that the title of the story? The wizard battle and how the Virgin Mary helped. Why not like Virgin Mary colon the wizard battle or something? Maybe I'm thinking of like a very like modern kind of way that you would like title a movie, where it'd be like the title is like the main character and then the other part's like a subtitle or whatever. I wonder if that heading is just something that they're giving this section of the article, or if that's like a literal translation of like what the title of it is in the Apocrypha. Either way, pretty interesting. The wizard battle story is recounted in two texts that were written around 1,500 years ago. Both were recovered from the monastery of Saint Macarius the Great in Egypt, which at one time kept the head of Saint Mark in its precinct. Oh, they have the head of a saint? Or at least they did at one time have the head of a saint? Seems like a weird thing to keep. Was he beheaded and that's how they got his head? Or did he die and then they said, well, we have to keep something of him, and then like cut his head off? If it was the second thing that I said, then that's kind of morbid. You know, cutting the head off a corpse as a way to remember it. Why not just keep his whole body? Maybe that's harder to maintain or store, I guess. Really weird, really weird. Anyways, both texts were translated by Paul Dilley, a professor of religious study at the University of Iowa. The curious tale of the wizard battle is highly revealing. That sounds like a tease. Keep reading. It's gonna reveal a lot. You're gonna learn something today. Okay. According to the translation, the Virgin Mary appeared to Bishop Basil in a dream, telling him to look for an image of her, Mary, that was not made by human hands. That's interesting. That makes it sound like did an angel make it? Did a god, as in like, you know, Abrahamic God, like the one God, did he make it? By image, is it like a statue? What are we talking about? It sounds like some kind of icon, but it's kind of vague in what like the image could have been. Is it like a stone statue? Is it like a bronze thing? Is it like a big like painting kind of thing? But it's some kind of like supernatural image of Mary that exists. But in a dream telling him to look for an image of her, Mary, that was not made by human hands, that he would find on top of two columns in the temple of her church outside of Philippi. Okay, so he had a very specific dream with very specific instructions. I wonder how cryptic it is in the actual text. I'm used to reading stuff in the Bible and it being phrased in a like weird way, where when you read it, it's like up to like a lot of interpretation. like where it's not super straightforward what's being said. But if she's like, yo, you're gonna find, now saying that it's gonna be an image of her is kind of vague, but the idea that it's like, yo, it's gonna be in the temple and it's gonna be on top of the columns, and it's outside of the temple, specifically my church that's outside of like Philippi or whatever. Solid instructions. Solid. I feel like that's a very clear message to get from a dream. I don't even remember a lot of my dreams, let alone full character dialogue instructions. So that's cool. Also, in the temple of her church, so the Virgin Mary has like her own church, like the Church of the Virgin Mary. I mean, I guess that makes sense. I know that certain forms of Christianity put a lot into the Virgin Mary and pray to the Virgin Mary. So it makes sense that there'd be like a Church of the Virgin Mary. The two columns are described as having been set up since the time of the giants. Now that's like an interesting line. So when it's talking about the time of the giants, even in like the fairly popular, where I live at least, King James version of the Bible, I'm pretty sure there's mention of giants in that as well. But depending on what you read, especially when you start talking about Apocrypha, there are a lot of different like weird interpretations of the giants. I believe in like the Bible, they refer to giants and maybe Nephilim. I think it depends on what translation you're looking at, as being like the great heroes of old kind of thing. But if you look at like the book of Enoch and texts like that, like apocryphal texts, it's like giants are hybrids of like humans and angels called Nephilim, and they're like insatiably hungry, and they do terrible things to the people and the wildlife, and that's why God brought the flood to try and like get rid of the giants kind of thing because they were ruining the world, stuff like that. So when you mention that they've been up since the time of the giants, I feel like that's a way of saying they've been around since pre the flood. Like before the flood that wiped out the Nephilim, they were up and they're like still up. So that's kind of interesting. That means they would have survived like the flood of the earth. And that they would be covered in demonic images. Now I think that's interesting. So the columns that have her image on them also are surrounded by demon images. And again, when they use the phrase image, I feel like that's interpretable as like some kind of like icon, whether it be like a statue or some kind of art piece. Her image is on the top of two columns, which makes me think it's like some kind of slab that connects the two columns, like that can be stacked across kind of thing. So I'm thinking maybe it's like a big stone slab or something that they're gonna like carry off of the top of the two columns or something like that. Or maybe it's literally like you have two separate columns and there's an image of the Virgin Mary like sketched into both, like maybe more like inscribed into both. But I'm curious what they mean when they say an image of her, because I don't know what that means. In the story, Virgin Mary also says that it would not be possible for anyone to take them down except through the order of my beloved Son. Okay, so it's impossible to take the image down except through like the power of Jesus Christ, or the columns themselves. It says for anyone to take them down, there's only one image, but two columns. So I guess it's impossible for anyone to take the columns down except like with like Jesus' blessing or whatever. That's interesting. I wonder if this story is going to show people who aren't in line with Jesus even attempt to do it. Because that sounds like an interesting thing. It's like a sword in the stone kind of situation, where it's like, whoever truly has the power of Jesus can like move the columns, and if you can't, get fucked, boy. You know, so I don't know. I'm interested in seeing where the story goes from here. Let's see. So this image says, could these be the two magical columns in the Philippi story about the wizard battle? They are just one example of many such columns found in this ancient city. Mr. Panigoff is just like an image of two pillars. Okay, so are these pillars actually from like Philippi? Like, are these like two Philippi pillars? Or is this just an image of two pillars they found? If this is what she's talking about, then you can see at the top of the pillar, you have these like almost gargoyle like things. I think, unless that's just a pattern, I can't tell if that's a pattern or if it's like little like creatures being like sketched out of the side, like how you'll see like a stone gargoyle like in the side of a building or something. Zoom and enhance, not much of an enhancement. Yeah, like I can't really get a clear view, but you can tell that at the top, there's some extra detail carved out. I don't know if it's carved out into a specific shape, like maybe into the form of some kind of demon, or if it's just like a design choice thing, like if it's just like a stone pattern or something. But that's interesting if that is what she's describing, because that implies that he needs to take these whole columns down. He's not just taking like her image off of the column when I thought it was like a slab on like the two pillars. It's like he needs to take the columns, and only someone with the power of Jesus can take the columns. So let's see how this goes. The story continues with Basil and a group of holy men going to the temple, where they are confronted by a group of wizards versed in the arts of diabolical magic. Okay, cool. So they're straight up like, hey, you know how we defined wizard earlier as just being like people with a polytheistic faith? Well, these are wizards versed in magic. So it's still going to be like a magic wizard battle. We didn't call it the wizard battle and how the Virgin Mary helped to punk you. These are magical wizards. You're going to be doing magical wizard shit. And when wizards learn the holy men's intentions to interfere with the two columns they created, to interfere with the two columns, they created diabolical illusions. There's not like a comma there. So it made me think they were saying that like they were going to interfere with the columns that the wizards created. I feel like the way it's supposed to be read is, and when wizards learn the holy men's intentions to interfere with the two columns, comma, they created diabolical illusions. Like as a way to be like, oh, you guys are going to interfere. In response to that, we are going to create illusions to stop you. But if you read it the way it's written, it's like, and when wizards learn the holy men's intention to interfere with the two columns, they created diabolical illusions. It makes you, for a moment when you're reading it, think that they're saying that they created the two columns. Because your brain sees two columns they created. And it's like, oh, these guys made the columns, but aren't the columns like from the times of the giants or whatever? So wouldn't these wizards have to be really old? Like my brain went on like a whole roller coaster while reading through that sentence. Punctuation matters, kids. But anyways, it seems like they can create diabolical illusions. They like to use the word diabolical a lot, versed in the arts of diabolical magic. Create diabolical illusions. What does diabolical mean? Seems like the kind of word I can use in a sentence, but if you ask me an exact definition, I may not know. Okay, characteristic of the devil, or so evil as to be suggestive of the devil. Thank you, Google. They're saying they're versed in devil magic and that they create devil illusions. Okay, yeah. When Basil touched the two columns with a staff bearing a cross, they leaped up from their bases and rolled to the place of the city's stadia. Now, I believe stadia means like the center of a city or something like that. I learned the definition of stadia back when Google Stadia came out, because when they were talking about it, they were like, the name is like an intentional name and it connects back to like what the word stadia means. But I don't remember what stadia means, so I'm going to Google that now to double check that. Okay. A sports arena with tiers for seated spectators is one definition. An ancient Roman or Greek measure of length, about 185 meters. A track for a foot race or a chariot race. Well, hold on. It's saying the plural of stadium, stadia. Let's see, a track for a foot race or a chariot race. Okay, so it's not what I thought it was. If it's a track for a foot race or a chariot race, then that would mean that the columns went to a racetrack. It might just mean that it went 185 meters using like that measurement definition, especially since this takes place in Greece. So rereading that, going by the measurement definition, it's essentially saying that they leapt up from their bases and rolled to the place of the city's stadia. The city's 185 meters. It must mean it went to the city stadium. But stadia is the plural of stadium. So it's like it went to the place of the city's stadiums. Like the city has multiple stadiums, and the columns leapt up and rolled to the stadiums. Speaking of which, that's a pretty cool like magic spell kind of thing. That sounds like an animate object kind of spell in D&D. But you're not commanding the columns to attack the wizards. You're just saying, go to the stadiums, I guess. Yeah, did Mary really tell him what to do other than to retrieve the image? Why send them to the stadium? Did she say to do that? Let's see. That he would find hidden on top of the two columns in the temple of her church outside of Philippi. The two columns were described as having been set up in the time of the giants, and that they would be covered in demonic images. Okay. She told him to look for an image of her not made by human hands. And then he said, and she said it would be impossible for anyone to take them down except through the order of her son. So the idea is to take down the columns? Question mark? I'm kind of confused on why you would tell the columns to roll to the stadiums. Is it that we want to destroy the columns because they have like these demon images on them? Is it that we want to move the columns away from the wizards? Like, I don't even entirely understand what the intentions of the holy men are when they tell the columns to get up and leave. Tell the columns to push themselves somewhere else. But apparently the wizards with their devil illusions weren't a fan of that. So we're going to have our wizard battle take place. But the wizards stop them, and the magical battle between the wizards and Basil's group comes to a standstill. When it says the wizards stop them, how? What do they do to stop them? Because the wizards are described as making like devil illusions. But it sounds like the holy men already told the columns like, roll away, roll to the stadiums or whatever. Did they summon demonic illusions that like got in the way? Like did like a devil illusion pop up and like push against like the rolling pillar and force it to stop before it could make it to the stadiums? I don't know what happens when it gets to the stadiums. Kind of like I don't even know what that accomplishes in the first place. Is it a concentration-based spell where it's like, oh, I touched my staff to the columns and it was going to roll to the stadiums, but then you summoned your like devil illusion and it broke my concentration, so like the column stopped moving? Like, I want details. You're trying to tell me about like a wizard battle, but so far it doesn't really sound like a fight. You know, the holy men roll up. They're like, columns go to the stadiums for some reason. And then the wizards go, nah, you roll up on our turf telling the columns to roll on out. These columns staying right here. Devil illusions. They don't say what the holy men do in response. It's not like, and then the holy men had like angelic illusions and they had like an illusion fight or something. It just sounds like the wizards cast their genjutsu, it's a Naruto reference or whatever. They create like their illusions of the demons, and then that's it. It's like, that stopped the columns somehow. Somehow the columns didn't roll away. It just seems like it's unrelated. It feels like the column thing would have already happened, unless somehow the illusions interrupted, or they are illusions that can like touch stuff, and they can stop the columns that way. But I want to know more. But anyways, they say that the battle comes to a standstill after that, after the wizards stop them. Is that really what a standstill is? That doesn't sound right. When I think of a standstill, I think of a situation where it's like, neither of us can truly prevail in the situation. If you take a move, I take a move, kind of thing. And we're always tit for tat, no one can really get an advantage. So you're telling me the like devil wizards can summon like devil illusions, and then the holy men can make columns move. What's the standstill? Is it like I don't understand. Like if the illusions are like literally like we're touching the column and we're like holding the columns in place, we're preventing them from moving. If you can make like illusions that can touch stuff, they could just make the devil illusions beat up the holy men, right? I don't even see how that would stop. Like just you could just be like devil illusion, like punch that guy in the face. And this is before the time of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. But I mean, they could definitely aura the holy men, right? Just punch the shit out of them. I don't know where the standstill comes from. And also, it's interesting that like the way that they're moving the columns is through the power of Jesus. They're like that's the only way to move the columns is through the power of Jesus. Then how can the demons even stop the columns? Like even if it is like we summon demon illusions, they probably couldn't put their hand out to stop the column because only the power of Jesus can move the column. So how can like the devil magic stop the columns? That seems to go against what the Virgin Mary said in the dream, is it not? Um, Maybe it's the concentration spell thing, and they're at a standstill because it's like, oh, well, these demons, I can't concentrate, so I can't move the columns anymore, and I couldn't move the columns by just like pushing them or something, or like getting multiple men to carry them, because only the power of Jesus can. So I have to use magic to solve this solution. I mean, to solve the solution, I have to use magic to solve this problem. But their magic is stopping me from using my magic. They got that counter spell, devil illusion spell. Ah, I wonder if reading the actual translation, if you get additional details on how the battle goes, or if it's just as like summarized, like loose summary base story as here. I guess what's weird is the fact that this isn't just like a quote. Why isn't this just a full quote of the whole story? I know that it's like these were translated like last year because this article is from like 2020. But even though they were translated last year, the text itself is still like in the public domain. It's just old. This is from years and years and years ago. The Wizard of Oz, which is something much more recent than this, is public domain. So as soon as you publish a translation of like a public domain text, what keeps like a website like this from just being like, and then we just post it up? Like it seems weird to be reading a summary of the story when they could have just posted the story. I would have read the whole thing just right from here. But whatever, let's continue on with the story. I've been asking a lot of questions as if they can be answered by the article itself. Maybe it will as we continue reading. As night falls, Basil decides to dismiss his group and rest. Okay, well, hold on a second. So it becomes, they hit a standstill. So it's sunset, and Basil, the holy man, is like, yo, guys, I don't know what we can do. Thanks for coming. You guys can dip. What were they doing in the first place? This is where I'm like really confused on the wizard battle, right? Because they didn't really go into detail on what the holy men can do. They just kind of say the wizards have diabolical magic and diabolical illusions. And we know that Basil can use his staff to like animate columns, but that's all we know. Like, was it a fight where the holy men were all running around animating stuff, and then like the diabolical wizards kept using their devil magic to like counter the animated objects? Like, what was going on? So when he like dismisses the dudes, it makes me question like why were the dudes even there? Like, what was the purpose of having the dudes there in the first place? Anyways, that night, the Virgin Mary returned to Basil's dreams. In this dream, she vowed that the evil wizards could be defeated. For those who did this evil deed of impertinent magic, behold, they are blind, grasping. When Basil woke up, healing water began to bubble from the base of the two columns, creating a stream that miraculously heals people. That's cool. I like that. So these columns not only have the ability to only be movable by the power of Jesus Christ, but also produce healing water, some kind of like healing fountain. Then miraculously, the earth opened up and consumed the wizards, and Basil found the promised image of the Virgin Mary atop the two magical columns. Interesting. I guess I have multiple questions. What is the name of the two magical columns? At this point, right, since they have all these like magical properties and produce this like magical flowing stream of healing water, you would think there'd be like a name. It kind of reminds me of like a Fountain of Youth kind of situation, mixed with like an Excalibur situation, because only like the worthy can move it. It also makes me think about like Milnir, like only the worthy can move it. And in the similar vein to like the Fountain of Youth, it has like regenerative properties, though the Fountain of Youth is like rejuvenative properties, kind of thing. But I'm curious, yeah, what are the names of those columns? Also, what a weird anticlimactic like ending to the story, because it's like, oh, the wizards battle vaguely because you don't know what the holy men can do until they fight to like a standstill where like neither side can like get like an edge on the other, and then the Virgin Mary just solves the problem on her own. If that's the case, right, if you can just solve the problem on your own, then why even, what would be the point of sending Basil to get the columns anyways? Why not magic it up and like send the diabolical wizards into the earth to begin with and make the like miracle water flow to begin with? Like just do that. Just on your own time. Like you don't have to get Basil in on it. Because Basil didn't really do anything when you think about it. He moved the columns but failed to at the same time somehow because the wizard stopped him. And I still don't even know why the wizards stopped. I guess the wizards were probably just as equally confused. I doubt they know what's going on in this situation. We barely know what's going on. And this is like a post-telling. During the moment, they surely weren't sure. It mentions that like the diabolical wizards learn the holy men's intentions to interfere with the columns. But what does that even mean? You know what I mean? To interfere with the columns. They're going to interfere with the columns, which means apparently to magically move them to the stadiums, which I guess is a bad thing for the evil wizards. I don't know. So this image, the caption says, in the other newly translated ancient Christian text, a tale of demons, selling pics, Adobe stock image. Okay. The other ancient text tells of trapping demons and more. The other newly translated ancient Christian text, this time an 11th or 12th century AD Greek work, tells of the apostle Peter trapping 7 demons who were posing as angels in the city of Azotus, in what is now Israel. In the text, Peter, who is suspicious of the angels, inscribes a circle around them. 6 of the demons admit to Peter that they are, in fact, demons of deception, sexual immorality, falsehood, adultery, avarice, and slander. The 7th demon challenges Peter and asks what right he has and why God doesn't also forgive demon sins. The only surviving copy of this text is in the Bibliotheca Angelica library in Rome. What? What? So the reason why I got confused by that last part is because I took Spanish in high school. I'm not super well versed in Spanish. But biblioteca in Spanish means library. And I remember people would say like, ¿Dónde está la biblioteca? Like, where is the library? Bibliotheca Angelica library, when I read it, in my head was like, Library Angelica library. What? It sounds like what you would really call that is Bibliotheca Angelica, and that would be the whole thing, and it just would mean like Angelica Library. But I don't know. Weird, weird. Speaking of weird, let's talk about that story. So, this story is like a weird Among Us thing. Peter's like, are they really angels? Ding, 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 ding. And they say that he like gets them in a circle, and then 6 of them admit that they're angels. Uh, he's like, they're all sus. They're all sus. Put them in the circle. And then the 7th one is like, who are you to judge? And then he's like, and why doesn't God forgive demon sins? And you know what? Good question, actually. I'll be honest. That sounds really interesting. Is that true? Is that is that ever mentioned anywhere else that God doesn't forgive demon sins? Because if a demon were to be like, I repent, like I'm sorry for like everything that I did, I want to like take on a new leaf, would God be like, no, demon head ass, never? Like is it just like impossible? Because it sounds like a question coming from someone who's like legitimately upset. Like they're like, I have no chance of redemption whatsoever. I'm just fucked because I just am a demon. I have like no options. So that's fascinating to say at the very least. Let's see. Then you got like these links. Mathematical genius or mesmerizing magician. The psychomagic of Scotland's ancient lost wizard. Sounds like another article they have. Interesting. That kind of reminds me of Mathematicans or whatever. This is going to be a little bit of a tangent based off of a random link that they have here. But Mathematicans are very similar to that quote that you'll always hear people say. And they have a version of this quote in the Thor movie where they say, any advanced form of technology would be perceived as like magic kind of thing. Back in the day, and I was surprised to learn this was a thing, certain mathematicians and engineers who were working with like pulleys and levers, like really simple machines by today's standard, were considered to be mathematicians, which are like people who work with the devil, essentially. I'm getting like an emergency alert for severe weather in my area. There's like storms and stuff going on. It's fairly calm where I'm at, but I have some friends that are in like rougher spots. So I hope everybody's doing okay. But essentially, there was a time where if you were building these simple machines with pulleys and levers, people would be like, he's working alongside demons only through the power of devil magic. Can someone like make these machines? So I think that's kind of wild to think about, you know, like even back then, it's not even advanced technology. It's like the most advanced technology of their time, but it's not like more advanced than them kind of thing. So it does kind of lend credence to the concept of like, if a situation like the Thor movie happened, where a being from like another world with advanced technology came that was much more advanced than ours, that could be seen as magic, especially when in like actual human history, we've just done that to ourselves, where it's not even like from the future. It's the modern stuff, but people think it's like crazy magic stuff because they don't understand it kind of thing. So that's interesting. That might be an interesting article to check out. Let me know in the comment section below if you guys want me to check out that link at some point and react to that. The other link title is A Spellbinding Story of Discovery, a medieval grave for a wizard and a magical artifact. That sounds cool too. What? Let me know if you want me to do that one. I don't have much to say. That just sounds like a cool description. But this also is based on it being a cool description. I just hit my hand on the table. I think that could be cool. And let's see, this next one says, the ancient text that describes Jesus as a shapeshifter. Ooh. Ooh, that's a cool feat. Um, I don't know if that's that interesting though to get like really hype about. Like this one is like a wizard battle and like demons getting trapped or whatever inside of a circle. But man, I don't know. Jesus shapeshifting by itself is interesting, I suppose. Just to say that he would like have that ability, like the power to take on like any form. Um, but unless he uses it to do something cool, I'm not particularly interested. If shapeshifting Jesus was in like the Virgin Mary column story, that would have been really cool. If any shapeshifting was in the Virgin Mary column story, I would have really liked it. Like if it was like only through the power of Jesus can you move the columns. Oh, yeah, that actually would be really cool. If it was like only through the power of Jesus can you move the columns. So then Basil goes, through the power of Jesus, Jesus was a shapeshifter through the power of shapeshifting, and then he like moved the columns, he transforms into like this muscle-bound like superhero dude, and he fights like the diabolical illusions. That would have been tight. Love that interpretation. That would have been great. Instead of the columns springing to life like we're in the middle of Fantasia or something and walking their way to the stadium. I do think the shape-shifting angle would have been nice. But who knows? Maybe in that ancient text where Jesus like shapeshifts, maybe he fights some demons or something. If we're talking about like Apocrypha, anything's possible. Yeah, you never know. If Peter's out here trapping demons one day, Basil's out here fighting evil wizards another day, maybe Jesus is out here shapeshifting and fighting demons, next week. Okay, so they have this YouTube video up, The Gospel of Thomas, Why Is It Not in the Bible? I'm not going to watch that video. I honestly don't know why it's linked here or if it's in any direct relation to the other things that they're saying. If you guys want to check it out, there's the title of the video. You can feel free to hit that up on Google. Another text tells the tale of a bandit border guard named Dimas who was crucified next to Jesus after helping and his family when they tried to flee Egypt to escape the king Herod, who wanted Jesus dead. Speaking with Live Science, Mark Bilby, a senior assistant librarian of scholarly communication and lecturer of religious studies at California State University, who translated this last text, says that this last apocryphal text was written in Latin and dates back to the 12th or 13th century AD. He said that in the Middle Ages, a number of stories were written telling the story of the criminals crucified beside Jesus. For the sake of preserving religious texts and Christian heritage, perhaps Part 3 of the Bible should be written, adding to the Old and New Testaments. Part 3 of the Bible would of course be called the Dark Testament and include all 300 of the edited out apocryphal stories. So I think the concept of saying Bible Part 3 is really interesting. And also calling it the Dark Testament is really interesting as well. That sounds like something that like a comic publisher would do for like a new initiative in comics. The 90s era of comics is called the Dark Age. You have like the Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze Age, Dark Age. Modern Age, I think, is what we're currently in now. There might be an extra age somewhere in there that I might have missed. Let me know, comic heads, in the comment section below and on Discord. But yeah. Oh, the site for the image at the top is at the bottom. Top image. Stories of wizard and demon battles have been found in ancient Christian texts. Airy Helidor fights on a horse in collage from engraving of Nazarene school published in the Holy Bible. Ba-da-ba-ba. So now we know where that image comes from. Okay, yeah, and that's this article. I enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed reading through this article. Let me know what you guys thought in the comment section below and on our Discord. I get into Abrahamic mythology. I like reading stuff from different sources. I recently have read stuff like On the Creation of the World, which is like a Gnostic text. I also recently read which is like a Kabbalic text. I recently read Revelations, from like the standard Bible where I'm from, like the King James Version, stuff like that. So I get into it, and a lot of times on AI Dungeon 2, I'll like to play through AI Dungeon 2 sessions that take some of these like interesting elements from Abrahamic mythology and throw them in. Not all of my AI Dungeon 2 videos are like that, plenty are not, but I definitely go through phases where I'll be like really into Abrahamic mythology, and a lot of my AI Dungeon 2 stories will end up being inspired by or have some basis in that. But anyways, thank you all for watching. If you guys like this video, make sure to smash that like button, favorite, comment, subscribe, and ding ding ding, ring notification bell. We notify whenever I do these videos. I do AI Dungeon 2 videos every day, so if you guys like AI Dungeon 2, definitely make sure you subscribe. And sometimes I do different stuff like this. You never know. Stay tuned. Anyways, thank you for watching. This is your host, your friend, your boy, Jet Black the one and only, logging out. Peace, guys. Check it out.